Alright guys, it is time for part 2 of the DET3. I'm going to say it's a familiarization. We're not installing it at the moment, but I don't want to wait until we're installing it because I'm going to be doing the install portion of it, talking about that. But at the same time, then if we don't have some kind of background or some kind of, you know, association or familiarization with it, then that's just that much harder. So we'll get it up here. This is where we left off last time. I'm just going to make this one real quick. And that's why I'm going to do the most of these things. If I cough and stuff like that, I've been sick for the last week, thereabouts. Got pretty bad as far as flu, maybe. Never had a fever, but man, my head felt like it was going to explode. And for the next couple days, my motor skills was kind of weird. I'd be texting or writing an email or punching keyboards, and it was I would want to select an S and I'd hit an F, a K I'd hit a V. It was weird, and I don't know if I had some kind of brain swell or something. I don't know, man, but it was weird. But anyway, getting better. Just got a lingering cough. All right, so this this is, like I said, the it's like what, 74 pages of this manual. We're only going to address or look at and talk about some of the things that's going to affect us directly. Okay, so not all these pages are going to get got through. So, but this is if you notice the numbers here, um, it's just gonna, if I, like right here, just where we can see number one, the table's area is 16 by 16. So each one is just kind of letting you know what is what. Okay, and I imagine on 7 you can highlight them all at one time. Number 3 is going to be your 3D map, things like that. There's not really a need to go too deep into here because as we go through things, you're going to see, and it's just going to come second nature. But this is the 3D map. This is analog N2, and then these two down here, these are 2D maps, and we've talked about this. These are your correction values. Okay, now correction meaning whatever I feed, whatever sensor I feed into here, I can use that sensor and either add in the fuel table, I can add and take away fuel. In the ignition table, I can retard ignition. I can't advance it. And that's an important thing that I really want to touch on this go around is you can't intercept the signal. In other words, the timing signal, right? Ignition table, and this is just the blank tables loaded up. Um, I can't I can't have a timing signal come into the DET3 and make it faster than what it came in at. Does that make sense? I can retard it, I can make it slower, but I can't make it faster. Now, I spoke about the gentleman Dan 91's Garage. I've watched several of his videos. I talked about him earlier. He has a Toyota Starlet, British guy, and he goes through it, and he does explain to you this as well. But but he has a distributor, okay, on that engine. It has a like distributor with a cap and so forth. So what he does, and what you could do if we had that, is advance your timing, right? So let's say you advance it 10 degrees above what it should be normally. Okay, so you're going to get your timing light and you're going to adjust it 10 degrees advanced. Then when you install your DET3, you would go into it and you would pull out that 10 degrees. So like, say we did that, we would highlight our entire 3D map here, and we would minus 10 degrees. Well, that didn't do it, so hold on. Minus 10 degrees. All right, now So what's happened here is, yes, I mechanically advance the timing 10 degrees, and I shouldn't do that. It's going to not be correct if I were to just leave it like that. So what you can do is go into this table, this ignition table, and you can select the entire field minus that 10 degrees that you put into it. That brings it back to zero. So this is where you're going to start. This is you do have a mechanically advanced system of 10 degrees, but now you've electronically pulled that mechanical out so that the computer doesn't know you've done this. All it can accept is what you're telling it. So yes, the signal coming into the DET3 would be advanced 10 degrees. Well, coming out, you're basically washing that out. Okay, so that's what you've done here. Now, so we're back at zero right now. Even though there's integers in here, this 10, negative 10 is bringing it back to zero. Okay, so now I can advance timing. So and like I said, I don't have Saturns because we're not going to do anything specific about that. But this is a 3-bar map sensor. Okay, it's set up on a 3-bar map sensor. The the timing is minus 10 degrees across the board, and that, like I said, takes out that mechanical 10 degrees advance that you added. So now I can, let's say right here, see right here on this cell here, you see where it's 0 0.8, 0 0.7, 0 0.43, 0.15, and then positive numbers start right here. I could go in here and I could advance the timing. Okay, I could go in here and I'm going to take that washed out number and I'm going to lessen it. So let's do this. So right here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add, I'm going to go with positive addition. I'm going to up key the positive. Let's go to 5. So here, in this area here, I'm advancing. I want a little bit, and in my particular setup, I have 8.5 to 1 compression. Okay. And honestly, yes, when I go to take off, just normal driving, it's kind of slouchy. And so I wished I had a way I could go in there and advance timing off of tip in as I go to accelerate, but I can't. So, but the reason I'm going through this exercise with you, I'm going to show you in a second. If you were to care to go this route, maybe you could do it as well. But so what I've done here is that 10 degrees advance that we put in mechanically, but then we washed it out by taking it away. Well, I'm giving back 5 to that. So right now, I'm 5 degrees advanced. Okay. Now normally I couldn't do this had I not had that distributor that I advanced the timing with, right? So I could, just before I get into boost, I could advance my timing 5 degrees, and then once it starts getting into positive pressure, it yanks it out. It takes it back to 0. Okay. And so here, let's say 1 bar boost, so 1.2. This is more than 14.7 right here, but let's just play with this right here in this column right here. Let's say right here, because of my air fuel ratios or whatever's going on, I need to take out a couple degrees of timing. Well, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add to that negative number. There's my 2 degrees. Okay. I'm pulling timing now. Even though that number's getting higher, I'm pulling timing. Okay. Because now this is literally minus 2 degrees. It's not minus 12, it's minus 2, because remember, all these cells right here were brought back to zero. All these cells washed out that additional advance that I had in there. So right here, and let's just do it all. Let's just select all. Enter minus 1, 2. So here, I'm advanced my timing. As soon as I got into positive pressure right here at 0.13, I took it out. So I'm back to zero from here to here. And then here forward, I've added 2 degrees additional timing to be taken out. So that's just really, 0.2. So right here is really 5, 0, and 2. Okay, so I'm advanced 5 degrees. I'm not advanced at all here, and I've pulled 2 degrees timing here. Okay, so the reason I'm telling you this is not if you cannot do this on your Saturn, okay, the way it is. But through researching for what kind of, to better understand the 7x reference or the 7 times reference ignition system we have on the car, I ended up talking to a guy that does all our cylinder head work and all of our engine machining and all that stuff. And he's smart. He's a pretty smart fella. And he sent me this bulletin that talks about. Let me get over there. So this is for your Saturn S Series 1.9 liter 90 to 02. This is a technical bulletin, okay? Crankshaft identification on GM 1.9 liter 7, 8, and 9. So now AERA is an organization. It is for engine builders and things like that. So I guess at one time they didn't know, and of course most don't, that there's a difference in crankshafts. I think most Saturn enthusiasts, especially on these older sites, these old performance sites, they used to have these a cache of like information, which pistons could be swapped, which rods, which cranks in this case. So it says right here, if you read with me, ERA members have reported some confusion identifying crankshafts for 91 to 97 GM19 VIN 7, 8, and 9 engines. There seems to be only one crank casting number, but 2 different crankshaft designs. These engines are used in the GM Saturn vehicles. The difference between those crankshafts is the amount of advance of the reluctor wheel. Both versions have a notch in the reluctor wheel for direct ignition, but in the years 93 to 97 the notch is advanced 10 degrees more than it was in 91 and 92. To distinguish which crankshafts are advanced 10 degrees more than the others, position the crankshaft, yeah. Okay. So I'll scroll down here and kind of show you. Let me try to, I think I can zoom in. So this is a 91 to 92 crank, and the difference I see just in the look of it, at least what I can pull out of it, is it looks like this design here is more squarish in the cut, whereas in 93 and forward, you see it's has more of a curve on the end, like the head of an eraser, kind of. Now, whether or not that comes into play, I don't know. But what he's talking about is the placement or location of these 2 notches is 10 degrees farther or forwarded on the 93 and forward year models than it is on 91 and 92. So if we go back over here, it kind of like in terms of when we're talking about the 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 distributor cap on Dan's Starlet. He mechanically advanced the timing 10 degrees. Sounds to me like if you were to take a 93 to 97 crank and put it in a 91 to 92 vehicle, yes, as soon as you start that car, you may have idle issues. It may idle up fast. I don't know. But what I do know is if that is the case, this is the one time that you could have an option to advance timing. Of course, like we did over here, you do the exact same thing. You would get in there before you even started the thing, and you'd go ahead and pull that timing back out to zero, right? So that when you started it, it started like that was never even done, like it's got a regular normal crankshaft in it, and Bob's your uncle. So I just share that with you because that's a viable thing that you could do by putting those cranks in there, making the swap from the late year model crank into your first gen if you have a first gen Saturn. Okay. So since most won't do that, it's just kind of food for thought. If you ever get to the point that you'd want to try it, maybe you buy older, you know, um, and then just try it and see what happens. 10 degrees, it works on the other cars, and of course, like I said, if you can take it out electronically, uh, you would have that ability to advance timing in that certain situation. Otherwise, no, you can only retard timing with this system, or most any piggyback system. Okay, on standalone, obviously the world's your oyster. You're going to do whatever you want to do. So, map set. Okay, I want to go back up there real quick. Right here, if you look, you see it says map sets 0. So we were talking about how, I'll just go over it real quick again. This piggyback has the ability to offer you two different maps to run off of, and you can do them on the fly. So you're driving down the road, you get a wild hair, you've tuned two maps. One is a 10-pound map, the other map's a 40-pound map. And you have the need for speed, as Tom Cruise would say. And so you reach down, you have a little toggle set up. Right now in your 10-pound map, you're at map set 0, whatever it's showing here. I'm not sure if you actually load it, will it give you a number here, but that whatever one you show when you do sync up and everything's good and you're running, that's your first map. When you switch your toggle or when you flip your switch, that's your second map, and you can do that live action. You're driving 70 miles an hour down the road, cruising, you reach down, flip. Now your map for your 40-pound tune is loaded up immediately. Now, down here, it warns you that as you do that, let me see if I can get it to come up here. Be careful. When you save a project on a disk, only the currently chosen set of tables will be saved. And it means that, let's say you're in your 10-pound map, you're at idle, you feel you could use a little bit less fuel at idle. So real quick, you flip open your laptop, if it's not already, and you add a little fuel. And you go up, and of course, as we talked about, and I'm just going to say this again to remind you, you go up into your system, and right here, normally that'd be black. That's make maps permanent. Okay, so if you added your fuel, okay, you added some fuel to the system, and you want to actually keep that the next time after you turn the car off. Well, you're going to have to make those changes permanent. You'll make those changes right now and run off of it until you turn the key off, but when you start it back up again the next time, it will not know or remember that you made those changes. It's just going to go back to the map settings. So if you make a change, excuse me, before you shut it down, you need to make maps permanent. And then next time you turn on your car, that change you made will be there. However, it will only be in the current map that you're on. Okay, so if you want that setting to be both in both maps, then you'd need to do it in both maps. So you'd want to add your fuel, go in, make maps permanent, and then flip your switch, go back in there and add fuel where you added it on the other map, make maps permanent. You see, so you have to do it in both maps if that's what you want to do. Okay, so you have to do that. Here again, I don't know if I covered it in the last video or not, but to set this thing up is really simple. In cavity 2 in the DET3, you're going to run a wire. Okay, very simple. You're going to, one end of the wire goes into cavity 2, the other end hooks on one of the poles for your switch, and the other pole for the switch gets grounded. That's it. Very simple. So power is being supplied over here, so when you make your switch, it grounds it so it knows that it should move to that second map. And like I said, you can do it while the car's running, driving, it doesn't matter. And to flip back, you simply flip your switch back, it goes back over to the other map, and you're all set. So on the 3D map right here, if you right click on it, you can go in and select a bar display. Now, kind of like what that graphic was showing you, every value will have like a running live action display. In this example here, they're showing it, he's got almost 4.6 volts of analog 1, which would be in our case, it's going to be the map sensor coming in. And in analog 2, he's got 89% fuel addition. Okay, whatever that is, who knows what it is. It's a variable, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second, and that'll be where we end it. Analog 3, he's got air fuel ratio set up on that, and he's pretty lean right there. And analog out it's analog in 1. Okay, that's your map sensor, your stock map sensor. Analog out is that same wire that was intercepted going to your computer, and he's showing 2.5 volts. Okay, so he's at 4.6 real world, but he wants the computer to only see 2.49. Okay, and that's what that 89% has done. Whatever, what this number reflects, that's what that number's done to that voltage. Okay, so you can do a bar like that. Here, this is like these aren't so much bars. Well, I guess they could be. I mean, it's going to look like bars. It's a horizontal bar. This is a vertical kind of bar over here, this histogram. It's just a bar graph is what it is. Okay, so and of course your 3D map. So you can in this window here, I can show it like that. I can show a histogram, and I can show, this is that bar graph I was talking about. Analog 1, if I just want to see what is going on with the in voltage of the stock map sensor, I'd select that. If I wanted to see what the value is in an analog 3, I can do that. I'm not sure that would be so helpful. This would be probably the one I'd run, because when you're actually running your car, if you have this selected up here, this is gonna it'll be actually two red lines joined together wherever you're at. Let's say you're idling, it'll be bouncing around here and and just it'll follow you around. And same thing on here. It'll be roving all over this graph. Here, it would be reflecting what's going on in the engine, like in that display. So this would be more of a visual, where this is more numbers dominated. Some people, they look at that and yes, they know it's here, they know it's there, but this is what the way do it the best way that makes you feel comfortable in understanding what's going on with your setup. So that's that. It tells you here in entering the values, you can do the up key to add, you can do the negative to take away, or you can hit, you know, enter, put your value in there to, and then come out. So, or I could just, like I said, hit this, hit shift, and then I can add, minus, 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 minus. So, okay. I want to talk about one other thing here this time around, and I'm skipping some of this, but I will come back. I will come back. I just had my mind set on some stuff I wanted to talk about. Right here, real quick. So in 1999, for my 95 Saturn, I had a turbo on there. Uh, was gonna My goal was to take it to there was a performance rally up, I don't know, man, Pennsylvania or something like that, up there in the Northeast. And I could not get this engine set up with the turbo to stop detonating at such small timing numbers. And I was using the stock engine management. The guy that made the turbo kit swore up and down that this was, you just bolted on the boost, the one-to-one pressure regulator was, the stock injectors, all that was enough. The stock fuel pump was enough to work with the 7 pounds that he had it set at. I'll tell you the story sometime, but for right now, that engine popped at 3 pounds of boost, and for years people made fun of me about that. I didn't understand it either. But keep in mind, in '99, a Saturn, there were only three turboed Saturns in the country at the time, and one of them was the test mule for this guy's kit. Come to find out, that engine blew a couple to 3 times, and he didn't share that with me. There was another guy who had a turbo system. His had a larger turbo on it, so boost came on later, but mine had a little bitty baby T25, which was part of that kit. The guy that had the big turbo, he did not have this same kit. Only me and this guy, Sheldon Lane, had that kit that was built. Only two people. And with nobody in the Saturn community to run this off with, and keep in mind it was a 95, so it's a OBD1 system, right? So the computer in it is slow. The boost comes on very quickly because it's a T25. I had full boost by 2200 RPM, and the boost came on, and there's a moment before the computer can react and add fuel, where the intake manifold is positive pressured, and it's usually around 3 pounds of boost. And how do I know that? Because a guy named Corky Bell, who wrote a book called Maximum Boost, has a paragraph in it describing this exact thing. And he says it's not common on vehicles that have larger turbos where the boost builds slower and your Your computer has time to add. It was a much bit different animal. So running a small turbo was the issue. And so anyway, at that point, I was very frustrated. I'd missed this performance rally that I was supposed to go to, and so I bought an engine management system. Okay, and it was from a company called Electromotive. It was full standalone. I had to have a reluctor wheel built for the crankshaft pulley because it was a Hall effect system. And I installed that. I rebuilt the engine, installed that, and ran 7 pounds of boost without an intercooler. And the guy that made that kit didn't. He said, "Oh, you don't need one. Yeah, it's just a small amount of boost. You don't need one." So here we are, all these years later. I know that it would have been very beneficial to have an intercooler, but the same thing still would have happened with that kit. However, with the engine management system, I was able to tune that thing to where I didn't need an intercooler. Now, at that time, you couldn't get a intercooler for $69. All right, we're talking $600 from the big guys, HKS and all this stuff. That's when there was no real eBay, nothing like that going on that was keeping the prices down. The turbos were expensive. There was Borg Warner, there was Turbonetics wasn't even around at the time. I don't think they came on later. So things were in its infantile stage, and so I didn't have any help. I didn't have anybody in the Saturn community to reach out to, anything like that. So, working with the engineer of Electromotive, I had never done something like that before, and so the tuning software, to show you how old this was, some of you may not even know what I'm talking about. But this thing software came on a floppy disk, a little 3.5-inch floppy disk, and it was running in a DOS Windows shell. Okay, so very archaic, very old, and things like that. But I got it put on, got it tuned, 7 pounds, raced it at Houston. I got video of it. I think I ran a 14.2 or something like that. That was on 7 pounds with no intercooler. And then I drove it to Spring Hill, Tennessee for the performance rally the following year. And I was the only turbo car there. And drove it there, drove it back. I mean, it was, so toot my horn, boop boop, but here's why I'm telling you all this. There's a point to it, not to build myself up or anything, but so Electromotive's logic on how they added fuel was called time on for 1 gamma. I mean, that dang thing sounds like something that the Hulk got into. Oh, you got time in for 1 gamma, Bruce? Oh, look out. So, but that was just basically saying that it's a calculation of how much fuel should be added at this point when taking all these variables into consideration. That's your time on for 1 gamma or 1 dose of fuel. Okay, so not trying to educate you on the Electromotive Tech 2, how to tune that and all that, but it brings me to my point. So all these things right here that you see, these are your variables. Okay, so this is, you might as well, you don't have to do this, but the only reason I'm taking you here right quick is to show you how it determines how much fuel to add at any given moment. So it gives you this equation. Okay, so the table value, which would be this cell right here, each cell has its own value, but let's say for instance right here it's 5. So we got our table value times our voltage step. What is your voltage step? Well, there's another area and I'll show you, but it's in your analog output configuration. Yes, right here. Analog signal modification step. Okay, and you got 3 choices here. 0.0049 volts, 0.0098 volts, and 0.0195 volts. This is your smallest step, this is your largest, and this is in between. Okay, so I just want to show you where you see that at. Plus voltage in. Okay, so whatever voltage is coming in from your stock map sensor into analog 1, that's your voltage in, plus analog out offset. Okay, if we go back in here, analog output offset voltage. Okay, so all those, if you remember, and I'm 55, and I wouldn't even know this if it hadn't been for my daughter, having needing help with math. But PEMDAS, if you remember that, parentheses, multiplication, division, and so forth. So you figure all these in this parentheses first, then times correction number 1 times correction number 2. And if you remember, these are your corrections, these two here. Okay, so what am I trying to tell you? Are you going to need to sit down with a pen and paper and do a bunch of equations to figure stuff out? No, you're not. It's going to do it all for you very quickly, as a matter of fact. But just know that all the changes that happen. See, and it tells you what it is. Voltage out equals output voltage from analog out 1. Voltage in is input voltage from analog 1. Voltage step, table value, analog offset, proportion, so forth, correction. So it's just letting you know that there's a computation that happens that gives you your fuel at that moment in time, or in this case in load and in RPM. So whatever you put in here, it's going to add that plus the voltage coming in plus this plus that plus whatever you're adding here, because your air fuel ratio is telling you you're kind of lean. If it gets to a lean point, if it gets to 16 AFR, I want to add 2 more doses of fuel. If it's a hot day, I'm stuck in traffic and I'm showing a little bit of it's getting lean, then I want to add another 2 doses of fuel. So all these at this point in time, this AFR, this temperature, is all those computations added together to give you your fuel at that particular time. Would give you your ignition at that particular time. Correction. Okay. So just right there, we're going to stop. But I want to just show you that these things are just, it's a very complicated equation going on, kind of like that time on for 1 gamma that I had to deal with. So when you're reading this manual, and you should, apart from me talking about it, you're going to get, please don't let this intimidate you. I mean, you're talking about this is an engineer that wrote this thing, and I had the same problem when I was dealing with electromotive. That guy, an engineer through and through. That's why I like the Unichip manual so much. It is 700 pages thereabouts, but when you're reading that manual, it's like it was written for a dodo. I mean, they said, matter of fact, they explained using an oscilloscope so well. I bought one. I never in a million years thought I'd be working with an oscilloscope. So there you have it. That's all we got for this go round. I'll update again soon. I've got another update coming on the ground side as far as what's going on with the motor and things like that. But guys, appreciate it, and I'll be back with part 3.